Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Monday morning, January 23rd. I'm glad to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And the chat room's open. I popped the link in there to the website that I pulled up this information from. And, thanks, everybody, for being here. I missed a lot of shows last week, actually. Just busy doing a lot of different things, job searching, putting out lots of resumes and taking care of stuff, and as well as doing a lot of studying and looking into more about what I'm talking about here and more work on the courses that I'm studying. So, sorry about that, everybody. I did actually miss quite a few shows, but thanks a lot for being here. I appreciate it. We're going to get right into the show. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist or anything like that. I'm studying to be a biblicist. But I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. You have to listen at your own discretion. And this is my healing journey. And so, it's sensitive material. I'm talking about abuse, and abuse is a very sensitive subject. So if you're not sure if the topics of abuse might bother you, then it's better that you don't listen to the show. And, you have to be sure, you have to be comfortable with what you're listening to. And if you think the topics of abuse might bother you, just turn the show off. And if you're 18 years and under, have an adult listen to the show with you, because I'm talking about a lot of adult material. My shows are not for younger children, even though it's all about really mainly child abuse and stopping child abuse. They're not for younger children. So if you're 18 years old or under, just have an adult listen to the show with you. They can help you decide whether or not it's age appropriate for you, because I'm talking about a lot of serious stuff. Dealing with child abuse and adult survivor issues and whatnot, right? A lot of mature material. So thanks, everybody, for being here. I appreciate it. Let's get right into this. I was looking in, actually for the last quite a while, I would say even the last month, I've been looking into these PDFs from Emmanuel's. It's www.emmanuels, IMMANUELS, Emmanuels.org, and that's a church website. So somewhere down in the States, I just stumbled across the website looking around for information on biblical counseling, and they have a biblical counseling course there that's free, and it's just information that people can go through and look through if they want to. It's all Christian-based biblical counseling stuff, so that's what I'm looking into, and so I found this BCM course there, and it's all PDF downloads. So if you go to that website, you click on the BCM course, it will, you can download the actual PDFs. It's a zip file with lots and lots of PDFs and whatnot inside of the zip file. But you can just read them. You don't have to necessarily download them. But, interesting information, and I find that it's very, very helpful for me because I got to the point where, what's left in my healing journey really is reconciliation. It's only going to be able to acknowledge and accept what happened. Can't change the past, right? And to be able to think rightly about it, so I don't carry any more of this anger and frustration and because I know justice was served and no justice will ever be served out here on the earth. And for my abusers and what they did to me and my family. And also just the whole idea of carrying a lot of anger and a lot of grudges, mainly. I wouldn't even say hatred anymore, or rage. That I'm not feeling that stuff anymore. But mostly what's left over is just this idea of holding people in contempt. My abusers in contempt and holding them in this grudge type thing, which doesn't get me anywhere. And my abusers are dead. So it certainly doesn't get them anywhere because it's not like they really care. They're gone. They're dead. One of my abusers is mentally ill, and he'll never change. And so this is where I've had to really allow, and my family, my immediate family that's still living, they don't have the ability to care. And so what do you do with that? I'm stuck in this on my own, which is what I thought. But I knew, because I'm a Christian and I believe in God, I knew that I would have to rely on God to help me get through the rest of this. And that is to change my heart and to change the way to really change my heart. Just not me just saying, okay, I'm fine, all right, I'll forgive them, I'll forgive my abusers. It doesn't mean I have to be okay with what they did to me. Not at all. And so I wanted to search out that information, And what I'm trying to do is allow my heart to change towards what happened to me so that I can go on and have a good life and actually enjoy this life, and which is starting to happen. I'm little by little, it's been a 5-year journey for me. I really started the main portion of my healing journey here while I was doing this show, when I first started this show 2 years ago. But I had already been doing a whole lot of work on my spirit and on my soul prior to that. But I actually started to face the actual abuse and allow myself to deal with it 2 years ago. And so, but a total of 5 years later, this is where I'm at, and it's a pretty good place. And so I know that it is working for me, but not everybody's the same, and not everybody's going to find that what works for somebody else may not work for you. What works for me may not work for somebody else. What worked for somebody else may not work for me, right? And so we're all different, and we all need different things, right? I know that what I've been doing has definitely been helping me out, and but that's just getting to the root of the issues, like what caused me to feel this way in the first place, and what can I do to change it? Because obviously I can't change the past, and I can't change what happened to me. I can't change my abusers. 2 of my abusers are long dead, and they're not going to change. So, and one of my abusers refuses to change. And he thinks he's perfect, and everything's just great, hunky-dory. He's forgiven, all is good. He doesn't have to take responsibility for what he did, and he just feels like he's already been, exonerated or set free from that. But I, in my heart, I'm sitting there thinking, well, he never ever did really show any repentance here to my family or to me, but he's mentally ill. You know what I mean? So what are you going to do? And so it had to be me to change the way that I felt. I knew that. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get restitution from this. There's no way that I would ever be able to hear what I needed to hear from my mother or from my brother, which was that they were sorry and that they really knew the damage they had done and that they were truly, truly sorry. And even if they had done that, what good would it have done? Like, the damage was done. You can't go back and undo. That's, I think, a lot of people who have been abused maybe do get these types of apologies eventually from their abusers. Not always, and maybe not all that often, but it can happen. Probably, I've seen stories out there, and people, their abusers will truly be sorry. But what good does it do? The damage is done. We have to learn somehow within ourselves to get help enough to realize that we can change this whole thing on the inside of us. You know what I mean? That I don't have to rely on apologies from my dead abusers. That I can learn how to grow in this process. And I can learn how to overcome. And I think that's what survival is all about. Surviving anything is about overcoming. Obviously, so people who survive cancer, I mean, they're survivors, cancer survivors. Well, they have to overcome a whole lot in order to do that. And, anybody who survives anything has to overcome. And so if I know this stuff deep down inside, and I know that if I'm an overcomer, then I have to be able to, the fruit of that, the reality of that has to show in my life. Am I truly an overcomer? 2 of my brothers killed themselves, so they certainly were not overcomers. Sadly enough, they let the abuse and they let this whole crazy lifestyle that they chose because of the abuse, which is truly their choice. They chose that lifestyle. They let that down, and they never ever had really a decent day on this earth. They might have had a few decent couple of weeks here and there, but mostly it was really bad stuff. And, watching my family do this sort of thing, right? I mean, I did the same thing, except for I was a lot more functional. I could hold jobs and make it through life, and I quit doing drugs and stuff when I was 21. But it doesn't mean that I was doing okay. It looked okay from the outside, but on the inside I was just self-destructing all the time. And so, I was going to head the same road, and I started to realize, I have to be able to overcome this. Something has to change, because I can't keep going the way I'm going. I'm going to have to somehow allow this to really change inside of me, because it's obviously we can't change the past. I'm a realist. I look at things in a very realistic way, and so I'm like, there's no way I can go back and change that, But what I can do is learn how to change what I can change in myself, and that is my heart mainly, so that I can to feel differently about this stuff, because it's never going to be okay what they did. It's never. You can't sit there and say that abuse is okay. It's never ever going to be okay what my parents did to each other or to us. It's never going to be okay what my brother did to me. Never. So I thought, okay, God, you're going to have to show me how I'm going to be okay with this. That's what it all comes down to, And I'm working on this, like as we speak, working through Scripture, working through the Bible, because I'm a Christian, right? And really just sitting there saying, Lord, you show me where it is that I need to get a hold of what it is that is your truth in this, that's really going to change my heart and really going to make a difference. And he is. He's slowly working it through there. And this is all stuff that people probably told me before or I'd seen before, but I didn't want to accept it. I didn't want to accept the fact that I was going to have to forgive, and I because I wanted to hold these people in contempt. I wanted to be able to be eternally angry and hurt by them, because part of me didn't want to let go of that by them. I had been hurt by them for so long that it was just something that was normal for me to be this hurt person. That was so hurt by these three people in my life, right? And then, these three people that played a key role in my childhood, right, which totally screwed me over. And so I'm like, well, okay, as an adult, how am I going to think differently about this? So I started looking into that whole victim role, the victim mentality, and knowing that my mother had played that role her whole life, and watching her do it. We were all taught how to do that in my family, right? So I started to change that whole perception. And, and I knew it's not like it's just all about self. I mean, other people are being abused too and have been. This is the issue. It's not just all about me, but this is my healing journey. So that's why you hear me talking a lot about myself right here at 30 minutes in the morning, because this is my healing journey. So obviously I'm working on myself. It's 30 minutes here in the morning. I actually do this pretty well every day, but I don't sometimes do shows. But just because I did 2 years worth of shows here and almost 900 shows, and work full time. And my sweetheart's terminally ill, and when his health goes up and down, my whole life goes up and down, because when his health takes a turn, things stop, right? And so about 2 weeks ago, my sweetheart's health started to go downhill, and so my life changed again for another 2 weeks while I worked with him and God to try to help him to get his health back around, which is what we've done. So now he's okay again, but he's terminally ill and he's in stage. So, like he walks very fine thread, and God knows the number of his days. So, not me. So I just have to go with it and enjoy everyone that I have with him. You know what I mean? So that's kind of one of the reasons why I haven't been around too much. But I was so exhausted from doing so many shows, and I sort of did cut back some of my shows. But I do work on my healing journey every day, and allow, just even for a small portion, 15, 20 minutes, allow some good information that I find, whether it's secular or whether it's out of the Bible or whether it's from some ministry that I'm working with that's with biblical counseling and these issues of abuse and child abuse, this stuff. I let it really work in my heart. Like I don't just read it and then just be like, oh, well, because my heart's open to change, because I don't want to go back to the same way that I was before, and I don't want to live like that anymore, And that's that 5 years ago when I made that decision, that things had to change in my life, that I was just going to head down the same path that I had been on my whole life, which was destruction. And whether it was just self-destruction or just, just being miserable, making everybody miserable around me, And I thought, this is ridiculous, I can't keep doing this all because I was taught how to do it. I need to be taught how to live differently. It's obvious that my parents didn't teach me anything that was any good, so I need to figure this stuff out. And it's obvious I can't do it myself. So I started really doing a whole lot of looking into stuff, and that's where these shows came about, and also my own stuff with biblical, finding the biblical truths, which are truths to me. And so, in doing it's made a huge difference. It's made all the difference. Because I mean, I sit here and I didn't want to forgive my abusers, you know what I mean, really, but I did because I knew, you know, because I'm a Christian, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I want God to forgive me, and I have been forgiven my sins. I need to forgive because Jesus said, and I listened to Jesus, praise God, and Jesus said, how many, you know, the apostle said, how many times do we forgive, Lord? And Jesus said, he said 7 times, and Jesus said 70 times 7. You just keep on forgiving. You just keep on forgiving. And so I thought about that, and even though in my heart I appreciated it because it was the words of Jesus, I was still not happy with that answer. I was like, why? Why, you know, where is this? Where's the release in this forgiveness? And I've seen other people write it out on different, you know, different things, like whether they write it in their books or other survivors writing on websites or on the walls on Facebook saying, I forgave for me, not for them, you know, because it released me. It released me from the pain. It released me from harboring that rage or that anger or whatever was going on inside of their heart towards their abuser. It releases them. Well, it's kind of true when you think about it, because my abusers are dead. See, they don't care, except for one of my abusers who's nearly dead, and he's mentally ill, so he doesn't care either. But the 2 that are passed away, they don't care. It's not hurting them that I'm hurt. You know, it's that 5 years ago I wanted to kill myself. It's not hurting them at all. That even when I was 10 years old and I was crying out for mercy, that it didn't hurt them then either. That's the whole issue. See, it didn't hurt my abusers to do what they did to me. It didn't hurt them inside, right? They did not feel bad about it. There was no remorse, or, you know, they didn't feel that they had done anything wrong, even though my brother sexually used me, raped me, and, you know, hurt me severely. You know, my mother was my main abuser who trashed my life, and really, I at the age of 10, I was just like, kill me. Go ahead and kill me. I'm dead. Go ahead. You're doing me a huge favor, because otherwise I'll have to do it myself later. You know, and that's really sad. And the issue is that I recognized how disgusting and how wrong that is. Why? Because they were not using anything decent in their hearts at all. You know what I mean? I don't even know if they had any good in there anyway. How could you behave that way and have love in your heart, you know, towards a child? I don't know how anybody could do these things. This is why I sort of wrestle with God on this stuff all the time. You know, I'm like, this is not God's fault. This is man's fault. This is my mother's fault. This is my brother's fault. This is my dad's fault. This is the abuser's fault, not God's fault. I was always blaming God, but it was not God's fault. It's my mother's fault, and my brother's fault, and my dad's fault. So I realized that, and I started to put the blame where the blame goes, you know, right smack on the abusers. But then what that did was open up my heart to say, you know what? I am so angry at them. So I spent my whole life really angry at them. And then I read this one article during this last 5-year period here that said, you know, that this person was talking about that. And they said, well, I was so angry at my abuser and spent my whole life angry and in anger and wounded by this person, until I realized that they really weren't wounded by what they did to me and really didn't care. Basically, I was just hurting myself, allowing myself to sit in that pity party of despair, real despair, you know, and it wasn't punishing them; it was punishing me. And isn't that the truth? You know, I spent the better part of 30-something cognitive years of punishing myself, not my abusers. Because my abusers did not care what they did to me, so it really didn't matter to them if I hurt myself, kill myself, have a horrible life because of what they did to me. It really didn't make any difference to them. And sadly enough, I mean, it'd kind of be different if it was a stranger. You could almost justify that, but this is my mother. this is my brother, you know what I mean? This is my dad, right? I mean, these are people that I was counting on, to finally come around for me. My mother was dead. How was she going to do that? But little inner children, these parts of myself, these wounded parts of myself inside really wanted that. And it's like, well, not on this earth isn't going to happen. And I thought, okay, so if I keep that rage and that anger stuff going, well, it's just me hurting myself, not allowing myself to heal, not allowing myself to find the answers, whether it's secular or whether it's biblical or whatever, but to get the information, to get the help that I need, and taking responsibility for my part. And my part had nothing to do with the abuse, I tell you that. And what I find really interesting is a lot of this great information, that I found that would really pretty much benefit Christians mainly. It might insult other people, but I didn't find it insulting at all. There's a great website out there called Free Christian Counseling. It's a church, but they have this biblical counseling center. And this guy, he went to, Dr. Reiner, went to study to be a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and took all kinds of great courses and master's degree in the secular world. But he was a Christian. And so he knew that the answers had to be in the Bible somewhere. And so he went and he started to study it out and search it out years ago and came up with a great approach to biblical counseling called faith therapy. So if you type into your browser faith therapy or free Christian counseling, that will come up, biblical counseling. It's free. You can take the courses. They're right online, videos, and you don't have to buy the books or anything. You can just take the course by just watching the videos and stuff. But I like what he had to say. I was watching one of his videos, one of the courses. I believe it was on the weekend there. I've seen it before. I was watching it a couple times. And he said, in no way does a survivor of abuse have to exonerate, basically, and be okay with what their abuser did to them. That's not what forgiveness is. And so, and he said, we don't have to take part, we don't have to take responsibility for what we do. So if somebody comes up to you and says, well, you're responsible for your part in it, if they don't know what they're talking about, they may feel like you're responsible for the abuse, and they may make you feel that way as a survivor, but they're actually very wrong. Because we don't have to take responsibility for anything that we didn't do. And so we don't have to take on the responsibility of the abuse. And obviously, we hear this all the time, and as survivors, people saying, okay, well, the abuse was not your fault. And that's true. How could it be? It's the abuser's fault, what they do, right? They chose to do what they did, right? And so it's not our fault. So we know this. And even in the Bible it says it's not our fault. But we have to take responsibility for our part in it, which would be the grudges, which would be the unforgiveness. This is what they're talking about as far as biblical stuff goes. Because that's sin in God's eyes, right? To carry that on, because that is the opposite of fear, is the opposite of faith, and hatred. What is that? It doesn't have anything to do with love. Being holding grudges. What is that? It's all fear based, and it's all based out of anger and hatred and rage, which all comes from the enemy, right? Which I'm a Christian, so it's the adversary, it's the devil. And growing up like that, I already knew this stuff, right? And I thought I was perfectly justified to be holding these grudges and to be so, holding my abusers in so much contempt. Well, they're guilty of what they did, but they're going to have to stand before God. He's the judge. And for me, the only way I'm ever going to feel any better about this whole thing is to actually be able to one day let it go. And that doesn't mean to say that it was okay or to agree with the abuse or to agree with life on abusers, because most people in society think that abuse is fine, as you can tell if you look around. It doesn't mean that at all. What it does mean is that I'm the better person. I'm the bigger, better person for not holding them in contempt and not holding hatred in my heart towards them. That makes me the better person. If I choose in unforgiveness and hold these grudges and anger and hatred in my heart towards my abusers, that makes me just like them. And it does. My parents were full of hatred and full of rage and full of evil. Well, otherwise, they wouldn't have been doing what they were doing to each other or their children. It's pretty obvious. And my brother, same thing. They grew up in the same home I did. Right? Same stuff going on. So if I allow myself to stay in that, and I knew this, right? That's why I was like, I have to change this. Something has to change because I cannot stay like this. Because if I do, I will end up exactly like my abusers, with a heart full of nothing at all that's good, And I don't want to be like that. I don't want to live my life like that. And so I really had to get down to business, and it's taken me 5 years to get where I am today. And, maybe does it take somebody else that long? Maybe not. We're all different, right? Maybe it takes some people longer. We're all different, right? And so, but it's taken me 5 years to get where I am today. And I'm doing a lot better because I'm starting to realize, I am the better person. And do I forgive them? Only on the basis of the fact that I want to be forgiven. So therefore, I forgive, right? Do I ever forget what they did? No. And here's an interesting thing on this, on these PDFs coming from Emmanuels.org. There is one there that's called It's got a teaching article about forgiveness and reconciliation. And there was one article saying that, you have to forgive and forget. Well, my dad is famous for telling me that. My dad's one of my abusers, right? And he's always trying to, throw his 2 cents in there because he's a Christian, and he's like, well, I don't talk to him anymore, but this is a couple of years ago. He's like, well, you just need to forgive and forget. And it's like, well, coming from you, Dad, that's not very cool. I don't, like coming from an abuser, that's just ridiculous. For, like one of my abusers telling me, I just need to forgive and forget. Right. Okay. And I was like, yeah, that's good for you, Dad, because you were on the boot end of the abuse, right? You weren't on the other end of it. You were on the one dishing out the abuse. So it's real easy for you to say forgive and forget, isn't it? So I didn't like to hear that coming from him. But coming from somebody else, okay, that's fine. The issue is there's a misunderstanding. And this teaching is pretty interesting. It's called, it's a teaching article on forgiveness. It's the third article. And it says, when I forgive, I must forget, remove the offense from the memory. That they consider that to be false. And they said, and see, that's the whole issue, is that a lot of survivors will say, I've completely forgiven and forgotten. And then there's a whole bunch of other people that say that that's just a form of denial. And for me, I don't want to be in denial. I'm not going to ever deny the abuse that happened to me. I'm not going to ever deny abuse, period, because abuse, that's what abusers want. They want people to go around denying abuse so that they can get away with what they do. Someone in a family abuses somebody, and then if they can get that person to deny the abuse, well, they're more than happy because they don't have to stand judged on this planet. Now, they're still going to have to stand in judgment before God, but they make it clean whistle out of the earth if they're able to not tell and to be in denial themselves, right? So denial is not, it doesn't make any sense. And I knew that biblically, and it had to be shown to me somewhere in there. You know what I mean? But they said nowhere does Scripture require you to have a blank memory about your own sins or sins committed against you. And they said, in fact, the memory of certain sins, even though these sins have been forgiven by God, is important for your training in righteousness to help you to not repeat them, or not to not have, to not take them on. You know what I mean? This sort of thing. And also, they said, even though you may not be able to erase from the memory the other person sinned against you, that this is up to God to judge that stuff. You know what I mean? But there's more reasons for it than that, and that is that we don't have to forgive the actual sin because only God can forgive sin. And so I think it's just the person. And I think that we're supposed to be forgiving because we want to be forgiven. But it doesn't mean we have to be okay with what happened to us. The only issue they do about that's where I'm kind of working on this stuff right now. So we'll continue on this tomorrow. We're out of time. But it's quite interesting, and I like what Dr. Reiner had to say. This is a little bit different. This is a BCM course, but Dr. Reiner's stuff from Faith Therapy, he's got some real interesting stuff to say about abuse, and you can scroll through his stuff there and check it out. It's pretty good. If you need some information, let me know. get a hold of me here on Blog Talk Radio or Facebook, wherever. So have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon. And, God bless you. Take care. And, I'll hopefully be around tomorrow morning as well. Same time, same place. And we'll pick up here where we left off. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.